Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Crippleman, aka Jeremiah. I am here to kind of give you an idea of what it's like to be a cripple person. Um, I have been a paraplegic for just about 21 years, and I have learned how to do a lot of things from firsthand experience and actually doing it. A little bit about myself. I am a 45-year-old man. I have one 16-year-old child. I won't go into a whole lot of detail about the family life, but I just figure, it's there are a lot of aspects to this life that a lot of people don't typically think about. And, well, I personally think that every once in a while somebody needs to remind everybody that, you know, there's more than just an injured body here. There's a lot more. I mean, there's a lot of mental strain and mental abuse that goes into being a handicapped person, to being disabled, confined to a wheelchair, crutches, a bed. I mean, there are so many different levels. But I figured today we would start off with, just basically going over a little bit of the basics. Just for those who may not, I'm sure a lot of people do know what's going on. I hope my sound is working. Okay, it is. Good. Whew. For a minute there, I was fixing to say, man, what the hell? But yeah, anyway, yeah, it's not exactly, just a cut and dry. Every injury to the spinal cord is the same because it's not. You could have the same spot on the back injured, but the extent of the injury is going to determine the extent of the effects from it. So first and foremost, we're going to go with an overview of what a spinal cord injury is. A spinal cord injury is damage to any part of the spinal cord or nerves at the end of the spinal canal, often causes permanent changes in strength, sensation, and other body functions below the site of injury. If you're recently injured in your spinal cord, it might seem that likely like every aspect of your life has been affected. You might feel the effects of your injury mentally, emotionally, and socially. And as a person who has been through this, who has lived this for 21 years, I can completely and 100% attest to exactly what this is saying. This is not an easy thing. It's not exactly easy to accept. It's not easy to wrap your mind around mentally as to what you're no longer able to do. I don't know if I agree with this statement, but many scientists are optimistic that advances in research will someday make repair of a spinal cord injuries possible. Research studies are ongoing around the world, and in the meantime, treatments and rehabilitation allow many people with spinal cord injuries to lead productive, independent lives. Yes, to a certain extent, this is true. This is true very much. But what they fail to mention in a lot of this conversation and a lot of this topic is that, a lot of times people can't afford to live. People can't afford to do what they did before when they have a spinal cord injury. And in all honesty, when you have a spinal cord injury and you're faced with the predicament of what you're going to do with this situation. So many people feel that they just don't want to deal with it. They don't want to be this burden on people. And to be honest with you, I completely and 100% understand that. And I completely and 100% agree that that is 90% of the time the way that a person feels. It takes some really hard work and some really dedicated people to help show people how and what you can do to help make a productive life for you or somebody you know or love that has a spinal cord injury. I suffer from a T12 vertebrae burst spinal column fracture. Basically, what that means is that my T12 vertebrae, let me get one of these pictures out here so we can kind of give you a good visual. Well, let's see let's this one right here. We'll open this one right here, okay? I want everybody to be able to see that, all right? See this thoracic right here, this area, this section, there's 12 of the vertebrae in your spinal cord. My number 12 right here in this spot right here, my number 12 vertebrae was burst into a million pieces. There was no yeah, that's a better pick. Okay, see my T12 was here. This is the T12 vertebrae is this one right here. That one right there. That's the T12 vertebrae. You'll get a better pick here in a sec. Oh no, that is the better pick. Okay, so how do I zoom back out? Oh, okay, like that. All right, well, that's the T12 vertebrae right there, that bottom red one. And this is the level of the body that it affects. It's from this bottom red right here all the way down. All of this. I have use of the quad muscle, which is this muscle right here in the front of the leg, on both legs. I can move a little bit, and I mean a little bit. I can make movement with my toes on my left foot, on my left foot. I can't make my right foot move unless I stretch. So I have no sensation on the back sides of my legs and from the knees down on any of the leg at all. None whatsoever. No sensations whatsoever. I have the ability to tell the difference between hot and cold right on the front of the quads, right on the tops of the thighs. But other than that, I do not know the difference between hot and cold from this point right here, down. This right here is dead. It's this most of this is just dead. I am fused from this vertebrae here, this one here, all the way to this one here. I am fused from T10 to L2, which means that in L2 and L1, I have 2 screws in each side holding a steel rod that skips the T12 vertebrae and then is reattached yet again at the T11 and T10 vertebrae with another set of screws on each side of the spine. It has definitely been an experience. It has definitely been a lesson in everything, for that matter. I've had to relearn how to do everything. I've had to relearn how to carry shit. I've had to relearn how to freaking ask for help. Because, I mean, let me tell you, for an independent person, asking anybody for help it's not exactly the funnest and the easiest thing to do. But okay, enough of with that. We kind of got that over with. We kind of went over what a spinal cord injury is. I kind of showed you where my injury was. This one right here, this last red one, which is the T12. That's where my injury was. So, excuse me, I'm sorry about that. Anyway, as I was saying, 45 now. When my injury happened, I was 24 years old. My life had just really gotten started as far as my own, doing my own thing, trying to make my life what I wanted it to be. And well, let me lead you up to what happened. I had recently started a new job. I won't say where because, well, I just don't want to put a company on blast or anything like that. It's not like they did anything wrong or anything like that, or whatever. But I just don't want to put names out there. So we're just going to go with I started a new job. This new job was a very physically demanding job. It required that I handle, in many different forms of the word, packages up to and not limited to 75 pounds. Now, not all of them packages were that heavy. Granted, some of those packages were a lot smaller, but there were a lot of the bigger ones. Well, our shifts were really technically only 6 hours. We had 6 hours to empty as many trucks and trailers as they brought into our distribution center before the drivers were taking them out to deliver them. Well, I did that one for probably about 3 months. I was working as a package handler, so to speak, where my job was to make sure the packages got on the right place, on the right conveyor belt, and went to the right place. I enjoyed said job. I enjoyed everything that had to do with said job. It was physically demanding, but it was a good job. And well, it was all right, and I was doing really good. The company was very impressed with my work ethic and my ability to take on and learn new things rapidly. And well, they presented me with a proposal. They were going to provide me with my CDL, and I was going to be promoted and move into driving their trucks on the lot until my CDL went through, and then we were going to switch me over from driving the trucks on the lot to driving between distribution centers. By distribution center, it's not really a distribution center, it's more of a processing center. They go to this location and then they get sorted out and go different directions, stuff like that. So they were in the process of working on trying to get me my CDL and promote me to a better paying, more hours, just a better all around job. And everything was going good. Couple of nights in, I'm doing my thing. I'm not in the truck driving or anything yet because, well, they're trying their best to try and make it legit by the book, which, I get it. You're a big company. You don't want to draw attention to yourself by doing stupid shit that you shouldn't do. I get that. So, that being said, I was doing my old job but learning a new job at the same time, and it become mentally exhausting as well as physically exhausting. So what I decided I was going to do is that I was going to push through. I was going to try and get some sleep. I was going to try and rest as much as I could and push through and try and get where I wanted to go. And well, one thing, was it was all well and good. Some things kind of just lead up to, things don't go as you plan, and you don't really you don't really get what you need. Not that it happens to everybody, but it does happen. And quite frankly, it is hard to deal with because, quite frankly, you never know what's going to be coming your way. So, on the night they were going to promote me, at the end of the shift, I had done my normal job and, kind of worked my ass off. I mean, I put an 8.5 hour day in less than 6. I was tired. I was exhausted. I knew this. My brain, on the other hand, didn't process the information quick enough. And what I ended up doing was I ended up trying to drive home. Well, now, if you know anything about Michigan, October is it's a chilly time of the year. It's fall time, and the weather's starting to drop, and you get them colder nights. Well, them cold nights are really nice, and they're really comfortable when you've just put in 8.5 hours in less than 6. So you tend to enjoy that for a few. I figured by the time I got to my car, I'd be good to go. I'd be all right. So I jump in my car. At the time, I was driving the car that you see scrolling across the screen. There's an image of it where it's not been wrecked, and then there's the crash images. But I jumped in my car. I started it up. I rolled my windows down, my driver's side window down, and I lit me my cigarette because, well, as you can tell, I'm a smoker. Have been for years. I lit my cigarette and I proceeded to head home, take my ass to the house. I was doing all well and good, driving up the road, kind of having a good old time, good day, good morning so far. I was happy I was headed home, climb in bed with my other half, and, I mean, there was reasons for headed home. My reason for heading home was that I knew that if I went home, I could climb into bed with my other half, and I wouldn't have to take a nap in my car all alone. Which, in hindsight, would have still been better than what I did. But anyway, I was driving. I'm moving along pretty good, speed limit a little over. I always did 5 over everywhere I went. I still do. I mean, that hasn't changed nothing in my life as far as my driving ability, And I was smoking, and I was listening to those little jam tunes, and I was driving. Well, at the time, I lived about 16, 17 miles from work, one way. And I finished my first cigarette. I went ahead and lit another one, and I go ahead and smoked that second cigarette. And on my way, I could feel the level of comfort continuing to rise over and over and over. Because every mile I would drive, my eyes would get that much heavier. Just that much heavier, that much harder to keep them open. Well, and at this point, I'm 3 miles from home. I made the world's biggest mistake. I finished my cigarette, I doused it, and I rolled my window up. And in less than 3 seconds, 3 seconds, my whole world was flipped upside down. I put the window up, and in 3 seconds, my body had said enough was enough. My eyes went closed. My arm went, so to speak, limp, and it pulled the steering wheel And when it pulled the steering wheel, it pulled the car off course, and I went over the yellow lines and across the left lane, the oncoming traffic lane, and I swooped down into a ditch. Well, if you know anything about Michigan roads are kind of, well, they've got a patch. Most roads, even in not just Michigan, but even everywhere, most roads in this country, there's a small patch of gravel that runs right up along the edge of the road, the asphalt, on both sides. When I hit that patch of gravel, I come to because I felt the car drop off the road, off of the asphalt. Unfortunately, I wasn't quite coherent enough. So what I ended up doing was my body kind of went into this state of shock or this state of panic, and my foot went to the floor. As I'm going into this ditch and coming out the other side, I take the driver's side mirror off of my car with a telephone pole, and it's coming back out because by this time I've overcorrected. And as I'm coming back out through the ditch, I come up on a driveway. Well, most places, I don't know if it's the same where you live, but most places have a culvert running under their driveways. Some spots are deeper than others, some spots shallower, it just depends on your current situation, your particular location and situation. But long story short, the driver's side front tire hooked that culvert. And when it hooked that culvert, the momentum of the car moving more than 60 mile an hour created a uplift, and it forced it up and over. Well, as it came over, it made contact with the ground, crushing the driver's side roof support. Now, in a lot of cases, that driver's side roof support crush most of the time would not have mattered. I was a law-abiding citizen. I was always wearing my seatbelt. I always tried to, keep it at a respectable speed. Most law enforcement will give you a few mile an hour over their limit, but I wasn't, driving like a madman, passing anybody and everybody that I come across, and stupid shit like that. Now, like I said, it was 6 o'clock in the morning. And when that tire hooked the culvert, sometime between going off of the road and making contact with that culvert, the hinge on the inside of my front seat, because it was a two-door car, as you can see in the pictures, the hinge on the inside of the driver's seat separated and left no support for my seatbelt. Now, the way I drove that car was my seat was kicked back. I was always kicked back and away from the steering wheel, the roof. I always liked to be kicked back so that I didn't have to worry about being near the roof in the event of a rollover. Just one of them quirks of mine over the years that I've developed even way back when I was younger. Anyway, when the seatbelt didn't prevent me from lunging forward upon that immediate stop in that culvert, it threw me into the steering wheel, and when I hit the steering wheel, the roof collapsed on the back of my neck. And when it collapsed on the back of my neck, it put just enough pressure in what was all I can assume was an already weak spot in my spine, which in this case was my T12 vertebrae. The T12 vertebrae was, according to my doctors, literally blown into a million pieces. There was no visual evidence that there was even a vertebrae there. They had to take a chunk of bone from my hip and rebuild my T12 vertebrae so that I could it was just so that they could do what they could to try and repair my back. Well, the unfortunate part during all of this is when the accident occurred, I spent 6 hours. No. Brain, get straight. I spent 45 minutes in that car, wrecked 10 feet from the front window of a house. The residents swore they never heard a thing until they seen flashing lights through their window curtains and seen that there had been something had happened. I happen to know the family that lived there. They were bankers, and I'd done some banking business with them over the years, so they knew who I was and I knew who they were. But I still sat in that car for 45 minutes waiting for help. I counted probably 5 or 6 vehicles that just drove right on past, didn't even know it had happened. You couldn't tell. The car was on its wheels. And the damaged part of the car was facing away from the direction of travel. So when people drove by, all it looked like to them was a car parked in a yard, possibly even for sale. So they didn't bother to think about it. Finally, something had, I don't know who, if it was somebody had stopped or if it was the residents in the house that I had landed in front of, but somebody had called 911. Got 911 out there. It took them another 45 minutes to cut me out of the car because they couldn't get anything to correctly function so that they could get to me to get me out without causing any more damage to my so-called already damaged spine. So they had to cut with the jaws of life and one of them big concrete saws. They had to cut the roof off of my car while I was still in it. Meaning they had to cover me up with a aluminum blanket that was rated for heat, and it wouldn't tear as easy as, just basically sheets or whatnot. So they covered me up and they proceeded to cut the 4 roof supports, or 6 roof supports. I'm sorry, there was 6. They started with the one right next to me in front, which was all fine and well. I mean, I had no problem with that. I mean, I was in agony. I was hurting. I wasn't even given 2 shits about what they were doing. All I cared was that they were working on getting me out of that car. And, well, one day, Jesus, man, I can't even keep my mind straight. Well, they finally got me out of the car. And when they laid me down on the stretcher is when I knew something was seriously bad. I mean, I knew there was something wrong when I went to try and get out of the car on my own. I tried to get out of the car, and unfortunately, that just did not pan out. I went to climb out the window that was already shattered, and when I grabbed the roof to try and pull myself out the window, Dukes of Hazzard style, you know what I mean, I realized I could not move anything from the waist down. And I knew immediately right then and there that I had a spinal cord injury. Oh, God, stop it, dummy. And I knew that no matter what, my life was going to be completely different. My life was going to be changed because how do you fix? How do you get? How do you how do you not know your life is going to change when you can't move anything from the waist down? So, I mean, I had known that there was something serious wrong. So they get me in the ambulance and they get me all doped up. And I mean, I'm so doped up, I don't even know anything anymore. I can't I can't recall seeing anything. I can't recall talking to anyone. I can't recall a single moment of the ambulance ride except every single fucking bump that ambulance hit. It was like agony all over again. Every single little bump felt like somebody was standing behind me and shoving a knife into my spine and pulling it out and shoving it in and pulling it out and shoving it in. And I'm telling you, folks, I am telling you firsthand, that is an experience I wouldn't wish upon my worst enemy. I would not wish that on anyone. I would not wish being in a wheelchair on anyone because, quite frankly, my idea is this type of a life is a bitch. Not just for the people that you that are around you, not just for you, but for everything. Everything. Life is a bitch when you are confined to a wheelchair. Now, for the first 6 months after my accident, now, actually, I'm jumping ahead of the gun. Let me go back a little bit. After my surgery, I spent 9 days. They had to wait 2 days to be able to actually do my surgery for the swelling in my spine to go down. Otherwise, they wouldn't have been able to do a proper rebuild on the vertebrae. Unfortunately, is during that time that they had to wait for my surgery, my nerves were pinched because of the T12 vertebrae was just blowed right out, and the vertebrae is where your nerves come through from your spinal column and out to the parts of the body that particular area runs. So I spent a total of 9 days in the hospital, doped up on medication stronger than morphine. And well, it was all well and good and it worked okay, but at the same time, I don't remember much of it. All I remember is I would wake up, I'd see my other half, "Oh, you're here," hit the button, and I'd be out cold again for hours. I don't remember much of anything but the last day or two of the hospital stay. Well, after the 9 days in the hospital, they sent me to a rehabilitation hospital. And I became an inpatient at the rehabilitation hospital where they taught me what they felt I needed to know about being disabled, how to take care of myself, how to do things that I used to be able to do with no problem, but yet now, unfortunately, anyway, yeah, uh, Anyway, yeah, sorry, kind of got distracted. But anyway, because of the damage and the swelling in my spine, it caused massive nerve damage. And we all know that once nerves are damaged or are dead, there's no regenerating the nerve. The nerve cannot be fixed. A nerve dies and a nerve is dead. They would love to be able to do something about it, but unfortunately that's just the way it is in this world. Who knows, maybe one day they'll be able to come up with something that will help prevent that from happening. But as of right now, as of then and now, I I am stuck with the it can't be fixed. And all well and good, I accepted that. I accepted the fact that I wouldn't be able to walk on my own again. I accepted it like day one. The day they told me that the likelihood of me being able to walk on my own again had gone out the window. I accepted it. I accepted it. I don't know why. I don't know why it was so easy for my mind to just say, you know what? This is my life now. It is what it is. This is what I have to do. But I did. I accepted it. I left it the way it was. I learned what I needed to. I spent 28 days, damn near a whole month, in a Michigan or in a rehabilitation hospital. Not able to sleep next to my girlfriend, not able to see much of my family, just doing rehabilitation, learning how to do everything all over again. It was a grueling process. It really was. It was a very grueling process. And I bit my tongue on a daily basis because I did not want to be there. I didn't want anything to do with sleeping in their little hospital bed. I didn't want anything to do with them waking me up to force pain meds down my throat. Because let me tell you, some of the pain meds that they had me on turned me into a zombie. I just slept. I couldn't do anything because of the medication that they had me on. I finally got to the point where I had to look at them and tell them that if they expect me to get up and do any kind of physical therapy or occupational therapy or anything for that matter, they would gonna have to stop feeding me those pain pills because those pain pills don't help. They don't help nothing for nobody. They only create havoc. They cause people to become addicted. And that addiction leads down other avenues that we're not here to discuss today, but the danger with any kind of a narcotic painkiller is there's always a chance that you're going to become addicted to it. And I didn't want to become addicted. I didn't want to become for a lack of a better term, I didn't want to be a zombie all the time. I didn't want to have to deal with remembering to take the pain meds and what it's going to do to me and where I needed to be when it was going to take effect and, all of that bullshit that goes along with it. Because in all honesty, taking pain meds is just such a pain right in the ass. Not only is it a pain in the ass, but it leads you down roads that nobody wants to go down. The road of an addict leads to judgment or to doing questionable things, not only to yourself but to others. And I didn't want to be that. I didn't want to be that person. I didn't want I didn't want the pain pills. And for a while, I did a really good job at mind over matter. It does not mind. I do not mind, and it does not matter kind of thing. I was always telling myself, it's just in your mind. It doesn't matter. It's just in your mind. It doesn't matter. Let it go. Just let it go. And for a while, it worked. And I was able to get up and get all of my physical therapy and my occupational therapy that they wanted me to learn while I was in rehab done. And they finally decided that they were gonna release me to go home. Mostly because they were tired of dealing with me and my attitude. Because I had an attitude. I have been a marijuana connoisseur for many years, many years. And even then, I was a marijuana connoisseur. But only when I was at home. I was never had anything in my possession, in my car, or at work. Never did it at work. None of that bullshit. I tried to play it by the book because I knew that I had to have that job. I knew that if I lost that job, I lost everything. So I kept most of it under control and at home. Never while I was driving back in the day, I was trying to keep it as close to legal and law abiding as I possibly could. So I finally get released from the rehabilitation hospital. And they tell me that instead of being an inpatient, they're going to do outpatient therapy. So I had to drive back down to that particular location like 2 or 3 times a week. Now, it took approximately 6 months of having absolutely no income whatsoever to get Social Security started. Luckily, I had enough points earned that they did, in fact, go ahead and grant me my Social Security disability. And when it finally started coming in, I realized that it was less than a quarter of what my earning potential could have been for a day. And quite frankly, it was very devastating to have to accept the fact that you have to live off of this specified amount of money, this specified insurance, this type of these stipulations and regulations. And it makes you go out of your mind because they make you jump through so many hoops. And then when they do finally decide to give you a raise, it's a slap in the motherfucking face. You break it down. My income is less than $3 an hour. Granted, I don't have to go to work and go get a job, go to a location and get a job. I do have to. I will have to, but I don't have to do that just to have an income coming in. But at the same time, I earned that. I earned that through my hard work before my accident. I earned that by being a citizen of this great country. And I felt that it just wasn't enough. And no matter what I did, I couldn't find employment where somebody was willing to give non-educated cripple a chance to do something he's never done before. Which, I get it. You got to have some sort of training, especially if you're going to be messing with computers or whatever, programs or, all that bullshit. But I didn't have that training. I didn't have any of that ability to be able to know what they needed me to do from the get-go. It would have required a lot of training and From the way I've experienced it, most of them didn't even want to bother. But I did, however. I'm not gonna do, I'm not gonna tell you what everything that happened in life because of my disability, because well, then that might just get a little too personal on some people in some aspects and whatnot. So I'm just gonna let you know. I got out of the hospital, and I had friends that helped build me a ramp so I can get in and out of my house, or my girlfriend's house at the time, and whatnot, and all this good stuff. But um, it was a learning curve. It was a very serious learning curve. I had to learn what I could and couldn't do successfully anymore. I had to learn what it took mentally now more than ever. And I'm not gonna lie, it's been an experience. I mean, in all aspects of the word, it's been an experience. I don't tend to mope, to be honest with you. I mean, most of the time I'm a go-getter. If you got something that you want done, and I'm usually the first one to jump out there and try and get work on it. Doesn't always work out for me, but that's okay. I'm all right with that. Oh man, oh man, oh man. But anyway, so a little while after I got out of the hospital, the rehabilitation hospital, they decided that they were gonna approve me for driver rehabilitation courses, so I could get my driver's license back and I could go back to driving and all that good stuff. Now, mind you, this is like the first 6 months, of my disability. And in the first 6 months, man, the mind is just going absolutely fucking haywire and fucking just all over the place. It's never in a steady, constant, and positive state. It's stop and go. It's think about what you got to do in order to do what you're thinking about doing. There's a lot involved. Again, once the Social Security come in, started rolling in, it made it a little easier, but it wasn't. My other half has had to put some serious hours in at every job she's had ever since this disability happened, just for us to make ends meet. And quite frankly, I feel horrible that she has to work so freaking hard to provide us with something that I cannot. My biggest goal was to find a way to where I could sit home, be the stay-at-home dad, the stay-at-home what is it? Yeah, the guy that takes care of the home, and still yet be able to provide yet more of an income to help with the family expenses, household expenses, fucking groceries, car insurance, which is absolutely fucking outrageous, which is another story for another time. But anyway, yeah, I mean, my idea of what it was going to be like to sit at home has completely and utterly changed from what it was back in the day when it first happened. But anyway, we'll get back to where we were at. In that first 6 months, there was a lot of changes happening. I was learning how to get in and out of vehicles without fucking being able to just stand up and get out. I was learning how to do everything. Cook, clean, bathe, all of it. I had to learn it all over again. Because, well, you get used to doing it one way and shit happens and you can't do it that way no more. it kind of, you have to relearn everything you thought you knew. And let me tell you, there is a lot I thought I knew I didn't know. And in all honesty, in retrospect, sitting here now, today, looking back on that first 6 months of my disability, I may have pushed that rehabilitation hospital to release me just a twig bit too premature. But I pulled through. I made whatever I had to do happen so that I could continue to show my other half my appreciation, my love, and that I was dedicated to try and make it as good a life as I can, even though I'm a paraplegic. I am stuck in a wheelchair, having to think about said wheelchair every single day of my life without reprieve, without a break, without even being able to get away from it. Just to be able to say that I can stand for 2 minutes and take the weight off of my ass. It would be, but yeah. Anyway, I lost where I was at there. Shit. I hate it when that happens. My brain went blank. That happens a time or two too. That's been happening for a while. I mean, my disability has been affecting me. Like I said, here I am going on 21 years of being confined to a wheelchair. And, well, after, that, yeah. Now, let's get back to that first 6 months. I'm sorry. I kind of I get mind twisted every once in a while, and I fucking lose track of where I was at. But after that, that first 6 months, I was able to get my driver's license back. I was able to drive again, but unfortunately could not afford a vehicle that had hand controls. So I wasn't able to drive. And, well, when your girlfriend has to work 8, 10, 12 hours a day, 6, 7 days a week, just so you guys can make ends meet, and provide food for you and your significant other, or for just the two of you. This was before we even had a child. Okay. Y'all just get back from Milwaukee? No, not yet. Oh, okay. And I do apologize for the interruption. That was my child letting me know that she's going to take a shower. But anyway, you end up finding that, sitting at home while your other half has gone to work for 10, 12 hours a day just to make ends meet, it isn't all it's cracked up to be. It's lonely. It's frustrating because you're limited on what you were able to do. I mean, back in the day before my accident, if I was home alone and I was bored, I'd go out and mow, or I'd go out and do yard work. Not such an easy thing to do now that I am being a paraplegic. So I had to learn new ways of doing things that would benefit my life. But I think that's where we're going to take a break for today, and we can pick up from here when I do my next podcast. I think I will do one of these every Sunday afternoon and see where we get for a little while. I do appreciate each and every one of you. I do want you to know what I am telling you, what I am talking to you about is no way, shape, or form advice or information to avoid talking to your doctor. Never avoid talking to your doctor about topics of serious and life-changing and altering proportions. I really appreciate you all. I love you all. I know you are all happy, and I hope you are all happy, and I hope that life is treating you well. Again, I appreciate you. My name is Jeremiah, and I will see you on the next one.